Live.
We are live. It's nice to be back. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Doing Bits Life with myself, Eshaan Akbar, and the one and only Vittorio Angelone.
What is
Vittorio,
the crack?
how are you, brother?
I'm good. I have an impending gig and I'm shitting myself.
This is so exciting. So this gig, tell us, it's a garden gig. Where is it?
In my garden in
In
Belfast.
your garden. Is it because yours is the biggest garden?
No, it was just because I thought, fuck it. I'm home with my parents and all, and like I feel like we have a nice shaped garden for it. There's like a little area that we've built a little stage on.
Okay.
And Sid, why are you making faces at
I haven't introduced yet, so I'm like, what
No,
am I
you're not allowed.
to do?
You're not allowed to
Just
talk
gonna-
until you're not allowed to talk until we say your name.
Yeah, until we introduce you.
Of course.
So this garden gig anyway. We so we've built a little stage. We've got all sorts of lights and everything. It's just me and two other comedians, and there's 30 people coming. So
Nice. Paid tickets?
no, I'm just freeing because I'm aware that we might be shit because we haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
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 So I'm just I'll do a bucket on the way out. But I am looking forward to it on a lot. I've got some mates coming in. We're gonna make like a little mini doc. So they're gonna film everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Make a little.
The closest I came, because last Wednesday I did a 1 hour show on this Next Up thing. So Next Up Comedy have got a festival going on. I did a 1 hour show, which was part of my Edinburgh show and part just stuff. And although I wasn't doing stand up, but I was on the computer. It felt you get into a rhythm very quickly. It's amazing how quickly your brain goes, oh, I remember this. I remember you do rhythm.
Yeah.
All this stuff. So I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah. I've got some bits and bobs. Sid's gone.
No, he's not. I've stopped his video.
You've stopped his.
Now I'm going to ask to start his video. I pressed ask to. Now, Doing Bits Live, it's of course the podcast where we invite some of our favourite comedians from all around the world to discuss all things stand-up. And our guest today is from around the world. He's currently in San Diego. It's Sid Singh.
Hey, how's everyone doing? This is the only way I can get Eshaan to respond to my text.
Oh, shit. Not this again.
I know.
Is it true that San Diego means the whale's vagina?
It's true.
Eshaan, I've never met anyone who acts more like they quote Anchorman than you.
What does that mean? I love Anchorman. What do you mean, though?
I mean, of course you do. Do you know what? Like, there's just something where, like, as soon as I met you, something in my brain went, he likes Anchorman. I know he does.
This is it. I'm taking it as a compliment, but I know from the tone, this is an insult.
Look, I don't have an opinion on it. I just know that was obvious.
That's my vibe.
Have you guys seen a new one? Have you guys seen his new movie?
The Eurovision one?
Yeah,
no, not yet.
Okay, good. Hey, let's move on. Hey, how about this?
Okay, so
Good interview show. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about all things stand up. We always put a disclaimer at the top, which is that sometimes the ideas that we might discuss might even help Vittorio with his set coming up. They may be underformed, undeveloped, and they might cause offence, but that's part of the fun.
All of the above.
All of the Remember, if you're on YouTube, you can ask questions. So please do. The more questions you ask, the more shit we have to talk about. So Sid, let's talk about stand-up. What do you miss most about live stand-up at the moment?
It is very weird how much. So I watched your episode with Atif.
Yeah.
And it's very weird how much this show is basically stand-up porn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he miss about it, and whatever he said, I was just like, yeah, totally. Oh, man. Like, definitely. This is definitely what this is. And by the way, I fucking love it. I miss so much the energy of being in a room full of people, and by full I mean like half full of people who are there who don't know what to expect, and it's your job to make them laugh. Because Zoom has actually been. I feel like it's gotten better, but that's what it's always missed. Is the energy if they're right there. And that, I mean, who knows when we'll get that back. California just went back to lockdown. So
what I find interesting about you is because you performed pretty much all over the world. You started in America. I've seen you in Edinburgh. You've been all over the place. Does the energy differ from place to place and country to country, or our stand-up audience is just always you've got that frizzing in the air?
Yeah. So what's so interesting is, you know, if you look at like the American style of stand-up really did start. Like we have guys like Lenny Bruce and some of the early Mort Saul, like really early guys who were one-man stand-ups. You know what I mean? Versus like if you go to like Amsterdam, it's so clear that their stand-up kind of evolved out of cabaret.
Yes.
So it's a very different emphasis. Like if you're, and I think the UK is kind of weirdly in the middle of both worlds. Like I think if you go to Edinburgh, like, you know, when fucking Nanette came out, I shouldn't even say fucking in front of it. That's how dangerous. I think a lot of American stand-ups were very insulted by it because they were like, what? It's not even 60 minutes of jokes or whatever nonsense, right? But if you go to Edinburgh, it's just an Edinburgh show.
Yeah.
That's all it is, you know. And so there was all this outrage for nothing. It was just like Nanette would have crushed in like Amsterdam or Germany.
Yeah, it is just a different thing, and I think it's just okay. It's allowed to be a broad kind of spectrum of the art. Exactly.
I think it's interesting that you say that the UK is in the middle, because I think it's reflected slightly in the industry in terms of it seems to be there's separate strands serving different types of comedians. There's the club comics who the Americans we're more au fait with. There's kind of the slapstick stuff, the clowning stuff. I don't feel like America has a big kind of industry of clown comedians, as it were, those who trained at the Goliath or wherever.
I don't get it. I every time I watch a fucking clown comic, I'm just like, all right, well, this isn't for me. Like, within 30 seconds, I'm just like, okay, well, this is, I have to follow this. This motherfucker's holding up a chair like, hey, what if this was an umbrella? I don't know, man. What if it was? Fucking this shit. But again, that's the beauty of like comedy is, you know, I'm this grumpy old man just like, what the fuck is this shit? And the audience is loving it. So clearly I'm wrong. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. That's interesting. So if the audience is loving it, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm just, it's not for me. Like that's the toughest thing about stand-up, especially once you perform all over the world, is that, you know, I'm just a guy. So just because I'm the one talking on stage, make me right. These are just things I think.
Yeah, sometimes I think audiences are wrong, though.
I was looking at Vittorio, waiting to see.
I've definitely experienced audiences that are wrong, but often I find that like it's more equal than like stand-ups would have you think. You know what I mean? Or audiences would have you think. There's a bit of a push and pull. I've definitely been in an audience where I was like, oh, well, these guys just suck.
Have any of you told an audience that they're wrong? Because I have.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's fun to do.
I've also gone the other way too, where I've been like, okay, you guys paid for this and you didn't pay for this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What if we restarted? You know, I've definitely done that too.
There's some of my material that, like, in certain areas of England, they are not on board.
Oh, like Dublin? Sorry. Who's that for?
Just particularly areas of England that have been redecorated by men in balaclavas is how we'll put it.
And the thing is, you don't need to know anything about anything to know why that's really funny.
Yeah, it's true.
So
I have found in England that my stand-up has progressed in a very weird way, where like when I first came over like 7 years ago, I actually did very well in like the north.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I do better in like London or Brighton or whatever. I mean, I'm the same guy. I think I'm interested in just different jokes now, I guess.
I fucking hate Brighton.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely detest performing.
Homophobic comedian Eshaan Akbar.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm very curious about this because I definitely, when I travel, I very rarely get to travel with someone who knows where they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's generally just me being like, all right, now I'm in this town called Brighton. I know they have that seagull from, you know, FIFA 20. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, you know, the thing about Brighton is they're not known for their Chinese food. This was terrible. And that's all I know about it, you know, and then other people have to like fill me in.
I always try and do like a little bit of research before like doing a gig, like aside from London, because London's too fucking complex, but like just wherever I am, I go, I have a little Google, or I even do a thing where like if an MC's doing crowd work and finds out where someone's from, I frantically Google that place so I can be like, oh, Bear Grylls was born there, and then just crack on with my set.
The only thing I would do.
I don't try to Google it because I found the audience is very perceptive to the fact that I only know one fact about whatever the fuck they're. They're very quick to be like, "Oh, this guy doesn't."
What about that Rolls Royce factory, guys?
Oh, yeah, right. That the home of 4 Starbucks. There.
I would over 2016, 2017, and a bit of 2018, depending on where I was in the country. I'd just check out what their Brexit voting record was.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to do.
I'd start the set by reading it and doing a big breath before I started my set. Always got me a big laugh.
Did you guys perform? I performed the night of the vote.
Where was I the night of the vote?
What year was it?
2016.
2016.
I hadn't started stand-up.
June 24th, 2016. Where was
Not only did I perform, I had just changed my dollars into pounds. So I was like, oh, please vote for me.
That's funny.
Oh, do you know what? The day after we voted, I went to Dublin for a stag.
Ooh. Good move.
And I'd already taken the fucking money out. But there we are. Is there a particular...
I performed, and it was definitely that's what I miss about stand-up right now too. Is there's this crazy pandemic going on. We're all experiencing it together, and I don't get to be in front of people talking about to make them laugh in that specific, like, because during the Brexit vote, I was on stage and like I did fine, but the other comics, especially in the second half when it started to become more and more clear that one, they were going to vote leave, and two, that a lot of people in the audience had not voted.
Right.
People were freaking out.
I was on stage when the general election vote came out last time, when the Tories got in, and someone in the audience went, "Oh, fuck's sakes," and I was emceeing, and I was like, "Well, I'm gonna have to ask what," and he was like, "Oh," and it was a gig, it was a charity gig for a homeless charity. And at the end, I was like, "There'll be a bucket, and they fucking need it now." So,
whatever you were gonna give, you could double it. That's the last 5 years now.
This is interesting, and I think we're probably jumping around. But anyway, in terms of talking about coronavirus, do you see yourself, Sid, as a comic who would talk about it, or would you be a bit more like my view on it has been? Comedians, we get our funnies from being the outsider, and right now we're just not. We're the same as everyone else.
Well, I disagree because I disagree with that specifically because you're definitely on the outside in some way, right? And it's all about figuring out what is your angle on it that other people probably can only half relate to, and it's your job to make it fully relate to it. So, for example, with coronavirus or before with global warming, my dad's a scientist. And all of his friends are scientists and doctors.
Weird flex, but okay.
What's up?
Weird flex, but okay.
No, you guys just sit down. This is one of the bits to work on later. So it's like I'm in this weird spot where I'm hearing all this different information. Like my uncle, who's white. No, okay.
Yuck.
Fuck.
Whose famous client for real is the Queen of England. All right, listen. Turns out her food is bland. That's it. That's all he has to say.
Okay, there we are.
But so he's in charge of the coronavirus response for his hospital in San Diego. So you're just getting like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was definitely probably more blasé than most because he was like, "It's fine. I'm not even going into the hospital. That's how few patients we have."
Yeah.
Versus like,
oh, I thought you were like, "It's fine. I'm not even going into the hospital because it's fucking dangerous in there. It's fine."
I mean, more or less, that's what he's going through right now.
Listen, if he's your uncle, I expect him to shirk responsibility. Basically, what I'm saying.
I mean, versus now where he's like, it's definitely taken much more seriously. Because every little town is handling and is dealing with the virus differently than others. So.
You started stand up how long ago?
In the middle of or towards the end of 2009.
And where did you start doing stand up?
It's weird. I started in San Diego for the first year. I was in San Diego.
Right.
And it didn't suck, but it definitely was so much lonelier than any of the other scenes. But I was also much younger than a lot of the comics. You know, I had just turned 21, and everyone else is like in their mid-20s, and I was very much still in college. Like I would drive the hour and a half from my university to do the, you know, it was 5 minutes if I was on time, but if I got stuck in traffic, like if took me 2 hours to get there, I would get 1 minute of stage time on Friday.
What?
And then 3 minutes on Sunday, yeah.
1 minute?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, that's as long as my first appearance on the Gong Show.
Yeah, versus here where it's like, hey, you did your job, kid. One joke didn't make him laugh, you get him next time.
Yeah. Have you ever done because a friend of mine who's been on the podcast, Aaron McCann, he's done Kill Tony a few times. Have you ever been at any of those?
So I never, because I was in San Diego, I never went up to the store up in LA. So I had never even heard of it until I had moved to New York already. I mean, to me, it's another thing where, like, now that I've been doing stand-up for long enough, I'm like, it doesn't feel...
Yeah, it's a bit like, why? I mean, yeah, 5 minutes feels short, never mind fucking one. Yeah. You'll be like, hi, my name's Sid, see you later.
Yeah.
Well, also, I find the more you get used to doing an hour, the more long-winded you are. And the more you have to, like, reframe your mind into doing 5-minute sets. And even when you do, like, the way I do 5-minute sets now is I try to, especially at an open mic, I'll try one joke and then just try to keep it going for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Keep it going for 3.
Interesting.
You know, so for a minute, it'd be like, all right, well, here's one punchline. And even if it does well, I don't feel good about it because it's the first time in a while that I haven't gone to do 4 punchlines after it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What's the leap like then to go from doing a minute to doing 3 to doing 5? Do you suddenly go to when do you start headlining?
So, well, it depends. Like, and it depends on oh boy, yikes, the journey you're on. Oh, gross, kill me now. But like, the way it works is, you know, when you're doing 3 minutes, just like 5, you kind of just have to go joke in America. Like, you can't take too long in your set because they're going to be like, you're wasting our time. And it's really, I think, 8 minutes and then maybe 12 minutes is like the first time you can really start to breathe a little bit and maybe get it slightly longer a bit and feel comfortable doing that, at least when you're starting out. And then you get 15. And then, you know, especially like if you can do a really tight 15, 20, you start to feel really good about yourselves. And then you have to learn how different 20 or 30 is from an hour. And I think especially the American hour, which is 60 minutes of jokes, you really have to be cognizant of the fact that 40, 45 minutes in, you're going to do a lull, and there's going to be a slight lull, and you can't do the Edinburgh thing of like, and by the way, did I mention my dad is dead? And they're like, oh, I feel guilty now for being born.
Yeah. So is there a trick that do American comics do something at the 40-minute? Because like you said, in England, certainly, or the Edinburgh scene, we start saying out 40 minutes, take them on that emotional journey, put that hook there. What do American comics do?
So the way I try to do it, like on my album and stuff, you have to mix up your rhythms. That's the best way I would recommend doing it. So it's like, you know, if your first 20, 25 minutes are like a punchline every, you know, 20 to 30 seconds or whatever, punchline or tag, then at the 25-minute mark, you'll find even by then the audience is exhausted. By the way, stand up, you just sound like you're bragging the whole time. Like, it doesn't always go good. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, that's the goal.
It was so funny. The audience were knackered.
They were just sweating buckets. You know what I mean? You ever be so funny everyone in your audience loses a minimum of 3 pounds? All right. But basically, at that point, you want to kind of shift into like, okay, what is there like a longer story I can tell? And maybe then, if you know you can do that first 25, maybe you structure it around so it's like you do 10 of just straight punchlines, then you do the story, then you do this, so you mix it up more. You basically try to get it so that when the audience is tired, that's when there's a story waiting for them, so they can just sit back and listen. And then you get punchline. Mm-hmm. You know, the last 10 minutes, last 8 minutes, you definitely still want to sort of be just like your first 2025.
Which kind of hour do you prefer performing, the Edinburgh one or the American one, or have you always done an American hour in Edinburgh?
No, so the last few Edinburghs I've been trying to I can't pronounce that fucking city. The last few years I've been trying to experiment with more serious topics, just to kind of like push myself and see like what it's capable of doing, and I've also had different life experiences, so I've tried to be like, hey, like this is probably too serious for an hour, but it's probably perfect for an Edinburgh hour. So let's see what I can create using that. I prefer it. It depends on my audience. If my audience is going to be receptive to me talking about my time as in refugee law, then I don't mind the Edinburgh hour. But if they're just a bunch of old white dudes whose approval I crave for no reason, I'm going to go 60 minutes of jokes.
Yeah.
Victoria, have you had a thought about this? Because you were going to do your 40 minutes this year, right? And then an hour next. Have you thought that, I want to do something serious or just fucking funny?
So I have the way I view a lot of stuff is to just play the game that's put in front of you. So like if you're going to Edinburgh, do an Edinburgh-ish show. Like there's no point trying to restructure Edinburgh. Like one person's not going to do that, especially with their fucking debut or whatever. So I've gone like the most Edinburgh thing I could basically think of, where there's a play that I went to go and see in London, which is about Irish and English people's kind of relationships and like the oppression and the history of that kind of struggle. And I went to see it.
Just kidding. Sorry, go on.
So I went to see this play and had the most bizarre experience watching it, because I'd been in London for maybe 4 years at that point of seeing the play. And I'd basically spent the entire 4 years convincing myself that English people don't have any negative stereotypes about Irish people. And then just because it's an easier life, do you know what I mean? Just to like not assume that everyone thinks a certain thing about you. So I'd gone through and just like, and I had all these walls built up of like protection from any like potential, like, oh no, that must just be, they just think I'm an idiot, not all Irish people.
Because I am an idiot, guy.
It's like they must just think I drink a lot, even though I don't drink.
You know who's like this? I hope he doesn't mind me dropping his name, but Sunil Patel is the Indian version of that. Where he's actually like, you know what, Sid, I just don't get it. I've never experienced racism. And I have to be like, Sunil, you've experienced racism in front of me.
I was there when it happened.
But the weird...
he's just like, no, they just don't like me.
Yeah. Because that's a nicer way to live your life, to just take that responsibility and move forward. But I have Irish people being like, are you sure it's not just you? And I'm like, for fuck, I know it's not. I promise it's not. And basically, I went to see this play, and there's a lot of moments in the play where the Irish people are really struggling to express themselves, because the Irish people in the play all speak Irish. But it's on stage, everyone's speaking English, but you can always tell who's speaking what language. It's very cleverly written. And it was at the National Theatre at the Olivier, so it's like massive, full of really fucking posh English people. Yeah. And so many moments where the Irish people were just struggling to express themselves, and the whole crowd was like, isn't that cute? And I was just, I actually had a really fucking hard time. Like it was the first time I was in tears watching this play, but not because of the play, because of how everyone was like laughing at it. Yeah. Because I felt essentially like the 1,000 people had all turned around and started laughing at me. And it was just this really fucking bizarre experience. So the idea for the Edinburgh show is because the play is all like, ha ha ha, English Irish people not understanding each other. And then one of the Irish women and one of the British soldiers fall in love, and there's this like amazing love scene, and then they run away together, and at around the 2/3 of the way through the play, the head British soldier goes, okay, we're gonna burn down a village every day until they're found. And it's just this moment of like, this has been very funny and like, ha ha ha, they don't understand each other, but there's a very definite power imbalance here that really means that it's not that funny. So I think I'm gonna, by talking through what happens in the play, kind of explode that out into my experience of being in England, and then the moment when that happens, I go, and this is some actual shit that I've gone through that I'm really not that happy about.
I really wanted you to finish, but I don't know why you chose the word explode in between. And I just what?
I go the other way. My favorite word choice of his was when he goes, so I guess it's not that funny. You forever.
If you ended the show
like that. Just drop the mic.
Thank you for coming, everybody. There'll be a bucket after the show, but I guess it's not that funny, is
it? That's funny. That is funny.
Which, by the way, that's actually what happened to me the first time I watched an Edinburgh Hour. Was I didn't realize there was a part where it got serious.
So you were just laughing.
So there was a part where I chuckled a little bit uncomfortably.
Whose
and
show?
there's a part where people are like, I can't say. I don't want to be mean, but there was a. Actually, no. You know what? Because I'm wrong. I'm the one who's wrong here.
Okay.
All right. I want to make that clear. But basically, there's a moment where everyone's crying, and I just like, what the fuck is this? like, hey, he's like, I didn't do this obviously, but in my head, I'm like, hey, he's doing it wrong. Hey, this is the opposite.
This the opposite.
Hey,
this the opposite. Hey, this the opposite.
This is contravening the Trade Descriptions Act. Okay, for comedy.
When you leave the show, be mad. Be mad that this happened to you.
Right. Okay.
So who was it?
Huh?
Who was it?
Oh, so the sad part is, as I was saying it now, I realize I can't say for a different reason. Because he's. I don't know if he's a comic anymore. Yeah.
Sex Pest. Okay.
Sex Pest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, for a different reason, I think he's dead.
It's Ian Cognito.
Again, I think that's a great way to go out. If he had gone out that way on his Edinburgh show and he hadn't gotten the award, man, that would have been awesome.
Man, that would have been putting your life on the line. So you started in San Diego and then you traveled all around. Is there a particular place around the world that when this is all lifted, if you could just get into a jet plane and go there, where would you want to perform?
Why'd you say jet plane?
Yeah.
I don't know, because he might say somewhere, I don't know.
No, but why jet plane?
Because it's the quickest. It's quicker than a plane.
Is this a Tracy Chapman song?
I didn't say anything about fast cars. I was talking about jet planes. Right.
This is gonna be an Edinburgh. This is gonna be an Eshaan's Edinburgh show when he runs out of shit. You know what I mean? And then a white man said jet plane, and I thought, I guess it's not so funny, is it? So it's interesting. I think the more I travel, the more I realize like every place has an amazing comedy spot, and every place has a place where you're like, okay, well, don't want to go there anymore.
Okay.
And I do think, I don't know if I'm going to be a weird old man for a second. I do think you owe it to yourself to keep going to the spots that don't like you.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get stronger. But like, you know, there are certain stages, like Top Secret in London is still one of my favorite stages.
Yeah, that keeps coming up.
Little Fields in Brooklyn, it used to be Wyatt's an Act Show, and now it's a Butterboy, I think is what it's called now. That's a great stage if you're ever there. The Mesreb in Amsterdam is like this, like really weirdly, like very, basically for a guy like me, I just want to be able to perform where people who are vaguely my age are. You know what I mean? Like in my 11 years, I've often been on the like outskirts of the industry, so I just sort of take whatever gig gets offered to me. You know, which is why before this, like a few months before this all ended, I performed at something called a Rotary Club, where I should not. Like they sang the Pledge of the Allegiance before they brought me on. It's like, they're not gonna love me. And then what I find is when you're in situations like that, just do crowd work. They're not gonna like your material, but they won't mind you making fun of the fact that they booked you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Was that where your last gig was? Did you say?
No. Well, I guess technically my last gig was that San Diego one.
You did 3 weeks ago.
The 3 weeks ago, and then everything immediately shut down again. I'm trying to think of where my last gig was before the shutdown. It was probably something in either LA or San Francisco. Oh, the setup in San Francisco, that's a great room. If you're ever
it just sounds so glamorous, doesn't it, Vittorio, when they say, oh, yeah, my last gig, LA or San Francisco.
Yeah, but they're all racist, so, you know, ups and downs.
Yeah, you know, swings and roundabouts. That's a hell of a
Sounds nice till you get shot by the police.
Yeah, it really is swings and roundabouts. They put you on the roundabout first because they want you to have fun, and then make you hang off the swing. Am I right?
And then you slowly try to raise your fist to see if it's the right time to do that. Am I right? Guess it's not so funny after all. I just love the idea of a comic yelling at his audience. There's nothing.
Yeah, that's really funny. It's genuinely funny.
You're wrong.
Well, that's my favorite. I remember, like, in New York, there's this comic. He's so funny, Mike Racine. He's such a funny comic. And so in New York, it's very, like, segregated is the wrong word, especially when we were just talking about there's two very distinct comedy styles that, like, in the last 5 or 6 years have, like, merged more.
White and
club
black.
Scene. A little, but it's weirder than that. There's the club scene and there's the alt scene. And then there also is a black scene, a Latino scene, and the Indian scene, but those are much smaller compared to, like, the club scene and the alt scene.
What's on the alt scene?
So the best way to do it is, like, the club scene is very much like a Jerry Seinfeld type comic, or like a very traditional. It's what you think of when you think of a New York comic.
Right.
And an alt comic is someone who's probably more likely to make it on television. This is the best way to put it. It's something more like a Janine Garofalo or a Mark Maron or like a Pete Holmes. I think someone who kind of straddles both worlds. But
how interesting. Because the alt scene in England is a very different proposition. Was a very different proposition.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you guys, like, I guess in England, the alt scene is probably someone who's more likely to get on Soho.
Yeah, weird cunts. Just weird cunts.
Yeah, or even before Soho, kind of the alternative comedy experience, slightly more sketchy.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Slightly more slapstick, more clowning probably would be on the alt scene.
To me, like, Julio Torres is an example of, like, the ultimate alt comic. I don't know if you guys have heard.
Oh, I have. He's the whitest looking Latino man I've ever seen in my whole life. He's got like a mullet and shit, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a clip of his recently.
He's very funny, and he's very alt. The funny thing is, for me, like, when I started out, I really wanted to be alt, but they wouldn't book me, so I became a club comic.
How funny!
That's so funny. Just let me on the fringe. Let me outside. Let
me be weird. Let me. I just want to be weird. And then they were like, "Yeah, but the clubs are slightly more likely to book you. Also, not likely to book me, just more likely." So that was a big difference.
Let's talk about material. I'm conscious of time.
Huh?
How do you normally write and test your material? And in the 11 years you've been doing it, has that process changed?
It's changed a lot. When I first started, first of all, I used to be like a one-liner comic. Like, I was very like, what's the news? Topical jokes, bang, bang, bang. Like,
but is that because the scene required you to be?
I just thought that was cool. And honestly, I had to stop once I started getting booked for 8 minutes because I just couldn't remember that many one-liners.
Yeah.
I just wasn't capable of remembering that many jokes. And then now it's changed so much, like, versus now where, like, I'll just be walking around and I'll have an idea. And then, especially when I was in London, I would just, like, I'd ask Ashley Gorman for a spot at South Ken. He would kindly put me up, and then I would spend 5 minutes just working on like a half idea on stage and seeing what came of it. Right. That's what I miss the most now is I don't really, if I write now, I'm typically writing a script for someone else. Like, I very rarely like sit pen and paper to write. And so, like, in a pandemic, I'm like, okay, well, here's this half-baked idea that I'll be throwing up on this podcast now. But otherwise, who knows,
Yeah. And so you like working the idea out on stage?
Yeah, and especially, like, right now, what I'll often do, or I guess not right now, but, before the pandemic, I'm interested in what can I turn into a joke that people are kind of scared about joking about, or they don't really they haven't figured out a new angle on. And I find that to be the most interesting. Yeah. And in the last 6 months, I've had to remind myself that that's fine, but you also need sillier stuff for the audience members who are like, I'm not thinking that hard, buddy.
Yes. Yeah. And also, I think to introduce them to your style, I think you need to start sillier with stuff that has no stakes. And then you can build the stakes up gradually. So they're like, okay, we know he's just fucking around here. Whereas if you go on and go, what about the ethnics? And then it's like, oh, God.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I was working, like, I had a silly bit that I think was in the middle of those things. In my head, it's silly, but you can tell that some of the audience members take it more seriously than you do, Like, my thing is, anytime I try to do the British accent, it sounds racist, which shouldn't be possible, right? If you study what racism means, a brown guy doing a white guy's accent can't be racist unless you hear my accent and then you're like, well, it sounds pretty fucked up.
That's funny.
Like, not above us unless you hear it, and then you go, oh, this guy's got a dick. Like,
is there something about like there's like, because often something that accompanies a racist accent is like a racist face. Could you like make like a British face and just like fuck up your teeth and be like, oh, you fucking right?
Yeah, because that's what I'm doing essentially. I'm just like, oh, it's me, I'm a British boy.
Yeah, that is quite racist actually.
It sounds fucked up. It's like, hey, I can see the audience members tighten up as I do it too in London. Where it's like, hey, some of my friends are British. For example, me.
Why was that guy Mexican?
Hey,
USA. What?
You slightly alluded to it, as you were saying. You slightly alluded to it. Which are there topics that you avoid talking about, but you just said that you like wading into topics that people are finding difficult to talk about?
Yeah, so like I used to, Eshaan knows this. My hit Edinburgh show, Eshaan's Mom, where I just made jokes about how good she was. Those are the things I don't do anymore, personally. I find those are off topic. No, the weird thing is the only line I have.
I will never forget Palmyra Pizza, and we were talking about Niger. Oh boy. I'll tell you the story in a minute, but carry on, Sid.
Oh no! Well, there goes my career. For me, the only thing I'll keep in my set is a joke that resonates with me in some way. Maybe it's actually happened to me, or it's the argument resonates with me. So weirdly, my line is like, I would never joke about that because I just ultimately don't care about it. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's something topical that I can get a laugh out of, if I'm not riffing it on stage, I would never write it down and use it again because I'm just like, even if it's funny, I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't.
So just to be clear, so when you say you don't care about it, just in terms from a comedic perspective, not because rape, I don't care about it. It's not. Do you know what I mean?
To all the female listeners, no. Okay. yeah. It's a thing of like, there are times when I'm like, I'll write a joke, I think it's good. And I'm just like, it's just comedically, even if it gets a laugh, it feels weird that I'm the one saying it, and it's okay if I'm like coming up with it on the spot in front of the audience. Mm-hmm. But if it's something I like wrote down, I don't know, it feels like it's not mine to say. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it has, like, even like, okay, how about this? This is I wanted to do one more silly joke that I want to pitch to you guys before I went to like the super serious stuff.
Do the silly one.
Can I do one silly thing and I'll go to the serious one?
Yeah. Go for it, please.
I've been with this girl a few months ago. We tried to sext,
right?
And I don't know how you fucking take it seriously. I don't. Yeah. I hate it. I hate sexting. So because how honest do you have to be? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, so often she'll be like, yeah, and I'm doing this to you. And if I was honest, I can't be honest, but I can't be like, yeah, then I got real tired. You know what I mean?
or no, actually, that hurts.
Yeah. You can't be like, why would you do that? Or you can't be competitive either. You know what I mean? You can't be like, yeah, you did it to me, and I was cool with it because I'd already made you come 7 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a line where you have to. There's something funny about like where they're like, yeah, and then you pick me up, and you're like, are you sure? Can I really?
Yeah, definitely.
I did this, not quite the same, but in my show last year, I talked about how I was sexting this girl for 2 weeks. We weren't able to meet for a date, and she was really into like BDSM stuff. So I would Google BDSM stuff and sex her at the same time. And then we met eventually after 2 weeks for a date. We started talking about what we were sexting one another, and she was like, oh my God, you're really turning me on. Keep talking. So I just kept talking about the stuff that we did. And she said, I think I might come. I think she had like a bullet or something. We were on top of Temple Station overlooking the Thames. And she's like, keep going, I'm going to come. And basically I've run out of remembering everything that I'd said to her. So right at the end, just as she's about to come, I looked at her and I went, and then I'm going to headbutt you.
Yikes. Fucking yikes.
And then she got up and left and blocked me. And I never expected it.
Here's an example of a club joke versus an alt joke, right? Like the club joke is like, then I headbutted her.
Yeah.
versus the alt joke, which is like, and then I was like, so you want to order from the Starbucks, or we're gonna just like,
Yeah.
you want to just keep coming like that, you know? And you're like, all right. Well, he went weird. That was the punchline. The punchline was he's just weirder now.
Just
Like,
more weird, yeah. Anyway.
This is good. We've got a couple of questions come in.
Oh, lovely.
Two that kind of apply at the minute. The first one is it different writing for American audiences and British audiences? And we kind of covered it in terms of like that hour-long thing.
The weird thing is I wouldn't say that the line is there, right? Because I would say writing for, well, if I'm being 100% honest, it's easier to write for British audiences than it is for American audiences. Because British audiences, there are times when you see jokes fly in British rooms where you're like, this would never fly in a New York or LA room. Because
why?
The joke is too boring. Even if it's a slightly fresh take, the sort of everything around it has been done before. So, you know, if you're in if you're in Littlefields, or if you're in like maybe even the store in LA, like they're just gonna be like, okay, yeah, where's that's still all premise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Versus the UK, which is a little bit more like, oh yeah, no, our comedy scene is like very quickly diversifying, but it's compared to what it was like even 6 years ago, we've never heard this line before.
Yeah.
But the weirdly thing is, you know, yikes. All right. If you go to like Cleveland, or if you're in like Seattle, like smaller American cities, it's just like that. It's the same thing. So
it's just a really comedy savvy audience, I think, is who are like up to date with like what's going on and what people are talking about and the kind of angles people are taking. Like if you're at the store and you're seeing fucking 20 comedians get up, it's like your angle has to be fucking razor sharp coming in somewhere that nobody's gone in before.
Yeah. I think I mentioned him before, Roy Wood Jr. He talks about, he's absolutely amazing. And he talks about how when he writes his stuff for the late night shows, he sits down and thinks, what are the other late night guys going to say? So he does that first. What's Kimmel going to say? What's, Trevor Noah going to say? And then he finds his angle, which is such an amazing way to do it, which is, how do you think about what other people are likely to say about this, and what can you bring?
I always find whenever you're in a spot, like I've been helping these young comics write, I'm so bored that I'm just like, yeah, whatever. If you need help, please. And it's what I find is, because you have your own experiences, look at what happened and ask yourself, if this is true, what else is true? And it's often when you ask, if you kind of keep exploring that, you'll find an angle no one's covered yet. That often is more true to your experience, because that was how you were able to come up with it.
Okay, interesting. Vittorio, did you say there was another question?
And have you ever apologized for a joke on stage?
On stage, I wouldn't apologize. I especially when it's like, oh, that joke didn't go well. You know what I mean? And it's like, I might say that, but I wouldn't be sorry about it. I'd have to move on, or I'd make fun of the audience for not getting it, or I'd make fun of myself, but I wouldn't.
Yes, be like, sorry.
There was one time where I wrote a joke, I did it, and I was like, this was the wrong audience for that joke. And that joke that audience laughed, but not in a way that I feel good about.
Right, interesting. Do you remember what the joke was? Do you want to tell us, or?
I think I was in New Jersey, and I made some joke, probably some fucking like, oh, I'm going to explode or something like that. And I was super new as a comic, probably the first 2 or 3 years. And I just was like, they laughed, but I don't really get a lot out of that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love the way they laughed. And,
but you just feel like you're confirming their biases. Yeah. And you can feel like that a lot. It's hard.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, it's that thing like that, because I've been watching a couple like Dave Chappelle interviews recently about him talking about like leaving the Chappelle show, and he talks about this moment where he was doing the sketch and a guy on set laughed, and he was like, I can tell when someone's laughing at me and someone's laughing with me, and that was it.
Yeah, the Oprah thing.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? It's funny because I sometimes think about this as well, which is at which point. Yeah. I like my jokes. And on the whole, I'm pretty confident that they're laughing at the thing I want them to laugh at. But
man, I've had this recently with the sketch I've been doing, the broadcast thing. So it's like this kind of hardline right wing unionist Protestant guy. And like, look, I think it's funny, and I write it well enough that it kind of can come from whatever. But you get people commenting it, being like, "Yeah, those guys are fucking vermin," like about fucking Protestants, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Like I'm trying to do, like, there's horrible points of view that some of that community hold, but you're just doing the opposite thing. You're just doing the equal and opposite fucking cuntiness, and I'm just like, that's not what I want to breed.
You said that in such a sweet way, where you kind of pause, where you're like, no, no, sir, please.
Well, it's like that moment where you're like, your joke, like, is no longer in your hands when you give it out, and then people take it in whatever way they want to take it, and you're like, no, give it back. Like.
Well, so that's the sort of thing that comics always have to deal with, and I think it's probably never going to change. But it's the idea that you write a joke, it's got to be a certain way for your own mind for it to come out, and it gets taken the wrong way.
Yeah.
How much responsibility do you bear?
Yeah, and where do you draw the line with taking responsibility for people taking offense?
Especially because it's like the first time you tell a joke, okay, maybe they took it the wrong way there, but if you're still telling it a year later, what responsibility do you take a year later after you've already seen the effects of people maybe laughing the wrong way or whatever? And maybe the answer is still like, who gives a shit? These are my jokes, and they're dumb for getting it wrong. I'm not here to say that they're
because there's a line. It's like some people will find it offensive if you like swear on stage, and some people will find it offensive. Like, and there's bizarre things have happened. Like one time I was doing a gig in Gravesend, which is the home of Brexit, like the absolute home of Brexit. Right. And I was doing this bit about how zoos are the only place where you're allowed to be anti-immigration. But like for the animals. And I was funny. It's the only place where it's woke to be like, go back to Africa. And then, but in Gravesend, I shouted, go back to Africa. And that's normally like, oh my God, ha ha ha, I can't believe you said that. But in Gravesend, everyone was like, yep. And I was like, an
audience member just had one small tear fall from their face. And they were like, I know, right?
Yeah. Finally, someone gets me.
So it's this weird thing about like satire where it's like, oh shit, are some people just agreeing?
So what do you do at that point then, Vittorio? So let's talk about this. So you've seen this. Does it alter your thinking? Does it alter your approach?
There's ways to address it. Like there's funny things. Like if I make like a joke about the IRA in like a very posh English place, and everyone goes, oh, I'll literally go like, oh, you guys don't like IRA jokes? That's so weird. Why?
What's the issue?
I don't get it. And it's like, you can do that, but then with like the satire thing where I'm like deliberately presenting a point of view that I don't agree with, to be like, look at this point of view, isn't it fucking shitty? Yeah. And then everyone goes, I like that point of view, and like it's hard to be like, no, I didn't mean it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, so basically,
real quick, I think there's also like there's a reality of, you know, sometimes you're like, hey man, I'm getting paid 30 quid. You know what I mean? I don't want responsibility to correct their beliefs. They're paying less.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I tried to write a sketch recently, which was basically, say, in the UK, ahead of the football match, people take a minute's silence for coronavirus victims, and then they get on their knee for Black Lives Matter. Right. I just wrote a sketch where a football match didn't start because for 90 minutes they were doing various different gestures for various different things, right? And I was talking this through with someone, and they said, but are you basically saying that all lives matter? And I was like, no.
That's really, really hard, because any kind of criticism of going like, oh, isn't it mad that we do like, what if, and then you're just expanding an idea out in a silly way, but people were like, yeah, why are they fucking taking a knee, fucking bastards?
Yeah, precisely.
Like, so you're just like,
because this person said to me, you realize people will say, yeah, they shouldn't be taking the knee as well as all this stuff. And it's like, fuck, I do want to write the sketch, but
the weird thing is that's my favorite part of comedy is I would say I spend a lot of time in my like hour making fun of liberals, but because I'm doing it from a liberal perspective, I feel like I can get away with saying
everyone's in the room on your side.
Well, it's even if they're not, like, even if they don't realize that they haven't been this entire time, they might have been paying lip service. I feel like you can dissect an idea for why it's so fucking stupid. Like, you know, the thing that's been annoying me right now is everyone's been posting these Breonna Taylor stuff, you know, And that's a great thing. You should be posting that. But the way that they're doing it is they're often being like, I guess my opinion on Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith's marriage is we should arrest the cops.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't care about the second thing. You're just trying to,
Yeah.
You're just trying to.
It's a bit like a psych kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the amount of like very attractive women who are just like, now that I've gotten your attention with my tits, we should arrest you. Like, yeah, shut up. That was never. You know, you're smarter.
It's like a
than
meaningful quote on an Instagram from a hot woman.
This is a bit that I'm kind of trying to work on, where it's like something that makes me so fucking angry is when people that I agree with argue the point on which we agree in a dumb as fuck way. Like I saw someone posting in response to All Lives Matter being like, save the whales doesn't mean fuck all other fish. And I was like, whales aren't fish, you fucking dunce. But if I comment that, then some cunt called River is going to be like, you're dehumanizing black people.
like, who is that example supposed to convince? Like, there's no All Lives Matter person with fishing just like being like, oh, you're wrong. What have I become?
That's
well,
really
like,
funny.
Here's a joke I really wanted to work on with you guys because I find, but it's one of the like the serious topics where I want to dissect it, where it's like I don't like the way we talk about cancel culture because I find it racist. Because I feel like it's this thing where white people for the first time are learning their heroes are flawed. And they're like, well, that's okay because we have so many heroes, we'll just switch on to the next person. Whereas brown people, we don't have that luxury. We've been like, because, you know, we've been put down for so long. Of course, all our heroes are flawed. That's what it takes to get well known enough. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be a weird person. Like, and by the way, I'm not going to cancel them. You know what I mean? Like, Gandhi definitely slept with underage women. And guess what? I'm keeping India. You know what I mean? I'm not giving it back.
Yeah, interesting.
This is my version of a Woody Allen film that I can't watch anymore. I'm going to enjoy India. You know what I mean?
It's that fucking, what's that Chappelle bit? Where he's like, he rapes, but he saves. But he saves more than he rapes, but he definitely rapes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But he saves more than he rapes.
Yeah.
And that's because, like, I feel like white people are for the first time learning that their heroes can still be a B-. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, that's how I view Gandhi. Like, he freed a million people. That's amazing. He definitely stepped with young. That's awful. You know what I mean? You don't get to be an A if you sleep with young women.
I wonder whether you can reference, you know, because you're right, you know, in Western culture, certainly there's a real lack of knowledge of who brown heroes are. And obviously one of the most famous brown heroes we have is Malala. And I'd love for you, and I think you'd be able to do this, which is to give Malala a really dark side, something awful that she does, but it's not going to negate the fact that she will remain a hero to so many because she survived a shooting from the Taliban or whatever.
You know what an example of that would be? Like, if Malala came out against trans people tomorrow, I'd be like, that's fucked up. But what she's done is a lot better than write fucking Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Even something sillier where it's like, look, she just graduated Oxford. If it came out next week that she cheated on all her fucking exams, she can keep the degree, okay?
But also, in Western discourse, the things that brown people have had to do to become heroes are much bigger than the white heroes we might celebrate. Malala had to survive a shooting from the Taliban. Gandhi overthrew an empire. The magnitude of these achievements slightly negate the fact that they did other. Do you know what I mean?
There's such a weird thing for me that is happening so much recently where anytime anyone says white, I go white English. And like,
that's funny
because I just have to compute it differently because otherwise I'll go, not all white people.
Well, that's the one time I tried one time on stage and I was like, oh, this got to go back into the workshop because I said the thing about Gandhi and then these three Indian audience members who were laughing all the way up until that point, they heard that and they just very, very polite. They just like stood up and they were like, okay, no, thank you. And they just left the fucking room. And I was just like,
why?
Yeah, that's fair. And they were very nice about it. They couldn't
have
been.
Why did they leave?
They were just like, nope, okay. Like they just heard me talking shit about Gandhi and they were like, yeah, we can't. We just don't feel comfortable. And we left. And I was like, yeah, what are you going to do? You know?
That's wild.
But that's why I was like, okay, I need to make. A lot of times, I might have a hard.
Do you know what that feels like to me?
Yeah.
If you were seeing like a concert pianist or an opera singer and they hit a bum note and you just get up and walk off. It's so weird.
One.
And
you just go.
One E minor sharp in the wrong place. And it goes off.
It doesn't even have to be a bum note. It can just be like it takes a turn. The song takes a turn, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I liked it until he started saying Galileo, Galileo. Then I was,
No,
thank you.
No,
I'm a Copernicus guy, and I will not stand for your Galileo slander.
You're listening to fucking Tears in Heaven, and then you go, wait, it's about his son?
That's really funny. I kind of want this bit. Whose is it? Mine. No one's gigging.
Yeah, all bits go to Vittorio as he has the nearest gig.
This is true. So, Vittorio, on Thursday, what are you planning on talking about? What are you?
So I think Dave Chappelle did a good job at attempting to unpick everything. I'm just gonna pick up where he left off. Really solve the whole black situation that's going on. I'm gonna get my notes up for the garden gig of what.
And you're gonna make it really meta and make your set last 8 minutes.
Yeah, I can
aren't
do
you?
the exact thing. So there's something. I found this very weird experience. When everyone was telling us to especially white people to engage with everything, and be like, read this, and what English, blah, blah, blah. And and just and be like, read this, watch all these videos, educate, unlearn, relearn, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was so primed to engage with anything about Black Lives Matter and anything that I could learn about this stuff. I got 7 minutes into a recipe for Black Forest Gatto before I realized it was nothing to do with racism.
I just thought that's what they called it, but they put them there and hung them.
So I think about this a lot. So my last Edinburgh show, I wrote about one of my professors beat Donald Trump in court.
Oh, mad.
And so I got to help raise money for and stuff. And then my Edinburgh show got to raise more money for
Sorry,
him.
beat him in what do you mean? A hand job?
A one-on-one?
One-on-one.
His administration was preventing victims of domestic violence for qualifying for asylum.
You told me about this, I remember. Yes.
So my Edinburgh show basically followed the story of their client who basically was able to ultimately win, at least at the time of the show. And I kind of just followed, here's the arguments they did in order to do it. Here's the people who they were going up against, and here's how they convinced them, or here's how they beat them. But so now, right now, the past few weeks, I've been volunteering at this place called License to Freedom, and I've been meeting these clients of mine against refugees, and there's a part of me that's I don't know, I don't it's like your black gelato cake where you're just I don't know if there's I don't know if this particular story has anything to do with me helping them in any way. You know what I mean? I think this is just me being her shirt was dumb. You know what I mean? Hey,
So you've been volunteering at this refugee charity, have you?
Yeah. It's called License to Freedom, and it's basically I studied. I have a law degree. I'm an unlicensed attorney, so.
I can see you doing it on an advert with a number turning up. Dial 1-800 unlicensed. You're yeah, okay. I need some help.
Probably, I'll find a back alley we can meet. But it's we're basically helping refugees who have already been granted asylum, all their other legal issues, if they need restraining orders against their abusers, stuff like that. So we help them out with that. And it's basically me just so nervous that I'm going to screw things up with an interpreter who's better at the law part of it than I am. And I'm just
and what have you done to make yourself proud, Vittorio?
Well, I have a joke about refugees that's quite funny. Where basically, so I think similarly using my skills in a similar setting, I've done a lot of work with refugees in terms of theater and music and stuff. I'm running workshop. I've been to Greece to the camps out there, and I've worked with them in London as well. And I haven't done it in a while because one of them called me fat, and I was I was like, nope. Sorry, mate. I didn't get the cardio from rowing across the ocean like you did.
Well, that's what I in my hour I had a bit about, like, as someone who's met a lot of refugees, I think liberals sometimes hurt refugees more than they realize, because they keep being like, "I've let all the refugees in because they're amazing." It's like, no, they're not.
Some of them are little
like,
cunts, man.
Refugees are deeply mediocre people. But you know who else? Most citizens are mediocre. Is how good you have to be to get into our country. Like the entire text, like, do you make meth? No, then in you go.
Yeah. How funny.
Meth. Like,
so
like,
I was,
but you can still buy meth, because if you buy meth, you're supporting our local economy.
Because I was gonna tag that on to just this idea of, like, there's only so much you can care about, and it's getting slightly overloaded at the minute. Like, start of lockdown, it was like, okay, stay inside, look after everyone, keep away, wear a mask, wash your hands 17 times a day. I was like, cool, I'm on board. And then all the black people were like, excuse me, we have some issues that we'd like to raise. And I was like, okay, I'm with you, doing the black square stuff, taking a knee, doing all that shit. I'm on it. Cool. And then all the women were like, excuse me, we have some issues we'd like. I'm like, okay, care about that as well. I stand with women, need to be better at these fucking people. And then someone was like, but what about Yemen? And I'm like, fuck Yemen. I'm like, there's too much going on.
You've just been telling me to say no, man. Now you want to say Yemen? Like, what? Come on. What's going on over here?
That's so Seinfeld.
We're bombing little kids and children, you know?
What's going on?
We're not selling you weapons. We're just refueling your planes. How big a deal is that? It's also, it's like that's one of those things where the audience might pull back when you say, I don't care about Yemen. And it's one of those things, well, fuck you guys. No one cares about Yemen.
So what I was gonna is like, do like, fuck Yemen. Like, I don't have time for Yemen. And then I would go, no. I used to actually do a lot of work with refugees. I really care about it. And then I can go, but I don't do it anymore, because one of them called me fat. And then I can go into that bit as well.
Okay. That's a nice way of doing it. Yeah, it's nice. I likes it a lot.
Well, that's also really good, because that's, so much of comedy is, we're increasingly in front of these really liberal audiences, and it's like, we sometimes forget, like, I'm not here to agree with you. I'm here to, like, pull a left turn and be silly. You know what I mean? And I find, like, there's something so human about, like, hey, listen, I love refugees, but I should at least be allowed to name the ones I hate. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a very, like, I'm humanizing them. You know?
Yeah, I like some refugees, but Greg called me fat, and I hope he drowns. No offense to Greg, but listen, I hope you enjoy that cardio as your fucking photo.
Oh man! And then the last, there's two other bits I'll run by you just to get out of my mouth.
Please.
Number one, I kind of linked to the being on social media all the time. I can maybe tag on to that thing about the Black Forest Ghetto, where it's just like we're engaging with everything. So I'm just like on social media so much, and you spot little trends. Like, there's something that happens on girls' birthdays on Instagram that is just amazing, where other girls will post on their story being like, happy birthday to this absolute queen. And it's a picture where the girl who posted the photo looks amazing, and the birthday girl looks like a bowl of vegetable soup.
That's funny.
It's so true. You see it so often where they're like, isn't she gorgeous? And I'm like, this is the greatest picture of you that has ever been posted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other
the modern
one,
equivalent of the hot girl hanging out with the ugly girls to make her look even
exactly.
hotter.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, long distance is tricky because it's hard to argue with your girlfriend long distance. So I have to find ways, like, if I'm annoyed, because often I'm just annoyed about the distance, and then, like, arguments just stem from that. So you can't actually be like, fuck you. You can't take it out on them, but you have to get it out of your system somehow. So basically, anytime I want to have an argument, at the end of the call, when it goes rate the quality of your call, I'm just like, 1 star.
That's funny. I think with you can add a bit more color to why it's, what was your opening sentence? It's hard to have arguments.
It's hard to argue in long distance.
Yeah. But I think it'd be there's loads of scope for you to explain why.
Yeah.
Of the things
About-
like the freezing or misconstruing, and they're not in front, whatever it might be.
I wrote a similar bit, but it's from a different take of like when you get into a long distance argument, or even when you get the sense that you're having an argument and she's not really arguing with you, she's arguing with the boyfriend she had before you.
Yeah.
You're not sure what the right answer is. Like, am I supposed to go all in 100% to help you feel like you're winning or whatever? Or should I just tank it? Should I just throw the argument? But I definitely had an argument recently where this girl was like, well, I'm going to go dancing, and I might dance all night. And I was like, I don't care. Who was your last boyfriend?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Why are you quoting song lyrics to me?
Is there something to tie that in with there's this thing where girls are always like, you can't use what worked for your last girlfriend in the bedroom on me, and you're like, well, you can't use the same bullshit arguments that you used on that fucking idiot.
Yeah, that's nice.
I love going back to your earlier bit about the girls posting pictures.
Mm-hmm.
If you were really that girl's best friend, you would post that comment over her fucked up looking face right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You'd be like, happy
so
birthday.
Yeah. And then is there a comparison? It might not go for the joke, but just so you get more reference points. What do guys do?
Yeah, maybe.
Normally, I reckon we post pictures of our mate throwing up somewhere or looking.
Yeah, we're open about it. We're like, look at this fucking
It's intentional.
idiot.
We want them to look like shit.
Yeah.
It's funny that we have very different reasons, but we post the same picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Picture men and women, we're just different levels of honesty with it.
Yeah. So I think there's something in that. So either pick up on the thing for the joke, but either for thinking.
Yeah.
But going back to the Black Forest Gâteau bit, I wonder if it needs a few more beats before you get to Black Forest Gâteau to say that, I was looking at black this and then I was looking at black that.
Yes, just trying to engage with everything like Black Lives Matter and anything with black
blackouts.
activists and kind of doing the blackout on social media and just trying to engage and trying to learn, and then it goes into the Black Forest Gâteau. Yeah, just to set up that word association. Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Eshaan, you got any bits you want to work on? That's right, I've taken over as host.
I mean, I like I said, on Wednesday, I did an hour on Zoom, and I did half an hour of new material and half an hour of Edinburgh show, and it just all seemed to work really well.
One thing your comedy was missing was the Stockholm syndrome of an audience.
I did very well. The one thing that I think I could make better is I made this observation about how the emojis that we use for dicks, like aubergines and cucumbers, you wouldn't do to what you would do to those vegetables, because if you did, that would be harrowing. Right? You wouldn't slice a penis. You wouldn't take a Madeleine on an aubergine. And I think there's more to it. That's the idea I've got. Basically saying that we need more emojis.
Can we please?
What was your audience reaction to that? They were just like, yeah.
They laughed. They were like, "Fuck."
And so I guess it's not so fucking funny, is it?
Can we please include the phrase, please don't spiralize my dick?
That's funny. That goes in. Yeah, please don't spiralize my dick. Yeah, that's good.
Our jobs are so dumb.
So dumb. This guy's a lawyer. Come on.
One of my favorite things is when you're really angry about something in comedy and it's so unrelatable to anyone else.
Yeah.
I wrote this sketch for I was writing for a TV thing, and they wouldn't use the sketch, and it's one of those things where you're like, it's such an unrelatable issue to anyone else to be like, they don't think Muslims can be vampires.
I remember talking to an ex of mine when I was coming home from a gig because it ran late. I was like, fuck, the gig finished and then the MC came on and he carried on doing material. What kind of a prick does and my girlfriend was like,
that.
What?
See, anyone who is listening to this or watching this at any stage, if you're ever emceeing a gig and you start doing material after the last act, I will walk on stage and punch you in the chin. It's fucking insane. I had an
so
MC
annoying.
literally be like, and now I get my stuff out of the way. And I'm like, do it in the middle! Like, just do it in the middle!
Get off the
Please!
fucking stage!
Yeah. It's weird. In America, every once in a while, you'll have, like, they have to make announcements. And for some reason, they've left their announcements till the end. And then that is
What
the
kind of announcements?
one exception. Things like, if you enjoyed the show, fill out your comment cards and, winner. Or, hey, now it's time to do the raffle where we find out who won the fucking free tickets to the other, whatever nonsense. American comedy clubs are very wonderful scams. Is what it is.
Listen, none of you, I don't know. Have you ever done any kind of Asian circuit gigs here or charity?
Yeah.
Have you done Asian Muslim charity gigs here?
Yes. And let me tell you, they did not like my comedy.
Fuck it. Speaking of Yemen, I've done a gig where a charity have come on, showed all this harrowing video of malnourished, blown up Yemenis, talked about how they need money, and then the person from the charity is given the task of going, and now I believe we have a comedian, Eshaan Akbar.
So not only have I done that gig exactly, I did this one gig in San Francisco where they showed the harrowing pictures. They talked about the need to donate, and then they were like, and 2 announcements now. Now we have a comedian, and also the buffet is now open.
Yeah. And the thing is,
I had to then go line up for food, and I was like, all right, cool.
When you get introduced after a harrowing video like that, the first thing you say makes or breaks the gig.
Yeah.
Yes.
Immediately.
I like deliberately doing that at any gig. I like taking a real swing with something in the room that I've noticed, and I know that it'll either make the rest of the set so easy or impossible.
I remember when I did the gig, they brought me on, and I said, "Oh, that's where my home video went." It did not go well after that.
No, it didn't. I'm not surprised.
And then I was like, I wish there were other comics here because they would appreciate that moment.
I'd be dying laughing, yeah.
Do you get that moment too where there'll always be maybe like 2-3 audience members who come up to you after that terrible bomb? They're like, I thought you were funny. And you're like, go away. I don't need this right now. I feel terrible enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's funny. That's so funny.
Right. Well, this has been so fun. Such a lot of fun.
I can tell by your body language. Yeah.
This has been so good, guys.
So good.
This was good. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what it is? It's because
it's friends.
I'm in one of these. I can't tell if I'm hungry or thirsty. Do you ever get that?
Shut up.
What?
Like,
you can't.
just
Sometimes you
shut
can't
up. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my whole life.
No. Because sometimes when you drink some water, you're like, okay, that's what I needed. You're not hungry.
You're so fucking stupid.
Did that joke work as well as your dick emoji one? Or?
No. That's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's an observation. And you know what? The dick emoji joke worked really well. Thank you.
Good to hear.
But yeah, I can't tell whether I'm hungry or thirsty at the moment. That's why I'm feeling a bit weird. Anyway, that was Doing Bits Live with Sid Singh. We've never ended the podcast like that.
Audience members, please chime in if you've ever felt thirsty or hungry. At least
and not tell the difference.
Live.
Sid, where can people find your stuff? What are your socials?
Sure. Listen, if you're really bored and there's a pandemic going on, you're definitely bored. Go to Spotify and you can hear my first comedy album that came out, I guess, 3 years ago this month. So it's a bunch of older jokes I have, but it's still very funny. So please listen to it. And I get tenths of a penny every time you listen to it. So.
What's it called?
It's called Amazing Probably by Sid Singh. Yeah.
So check out.
Yeah.
Go on.
And if you're on the YouTube,
you can please listen to it. Or you can buy it too if you want. Don't buy it. I know that sounds weird. I make more money if you buy it, but it's free. Why would you buy it? Listen to it with a few ads. It'll be fine. The other thing, you can follow me at Looking for Sid on Instagram and at Mr. Sid Singh on Twitter. And please do, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. And if you're watching on the YouTube right now, just don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe button. And if you're on iTunes listening back, give us a little 5-star review, as some shit cunt gave us a 1-star review and didn't even leave a comment.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't know how to say it, so I gave his podcast a 1-star.
Why would you do that? Why?
Listen.
What's in it for you to do that?
Listen. Definite rapist, but okay. And we
Fucking hell. And on that note, that was Doing Bits Live. Thanks for tuning in.
Have fun, guys. See you later.
Bye.